It was completely unexpected when Rue McClanahan opened the NBC envelope that a life-altering event was on the horizon. The Golden Girls, a play about four elderly women who live under the same roof and discover they are all part of one destiny, was among the scripts found within. Curiosity mixed with skepticism consumed her. Would the American public be interested in a show about elderly women? This is going to be a hit, Rue thought to herself as she paused after reading the first few chapters. Yes, she was correct. She had no idea that the Golden Girls would be the high point and the low point of her career, the source of laughter, recognition, and golden medals. The profound impact of that one phone call. Rue McClanahan nearly disregarded a phone call that came in the middle of a peaceful morning. The other party was her ICM agent, and he was very enthusiastic in his voice. Rue, you need to read this one, he pointed out. NBC is working on a new project. That's not like it. Rue knew from experience that different might signify anything in the industry. Regardless, the quest for knowledge triumphed. A simple envelope showed up at her Los Angeles residence a few hours after that. All that was printed on the return address was NBC Studios. A script called The Golden Girls was contained within. Nothing about it was showy. Just a stack of pages with a slight scent of new ink. No ribbon, no cover letter, at all. She made herself a cup of coffee, settled down at the kitchen table, and started reading. She became fascinated within minutes. Funny and profoundly human, the writing was both incisive and moving. The plot centered on four Miami ladies who were roommates and were bravely navigating their final years. When Rue got to the last scene, she started turning the pages even faster. Under her breath, she said, "This is going to be a hit." As she finished, there was a turning point in Rue's career at that point. Despite her regard and experience working with Arthur on Ma, she found it difficult to find a career that catered to women over the age of 40. Hollywood had a knack for erasing any trace of women who looked like her. Still, here was a program that had the guts to feature elderly women, not as punchlines or victims, but as powerful, humorous, multifaceted individuals in their own right. And Rue knew it was rare. She believed it could alter the course of history if this were to be produced. The innocent-looking Midwestern woman Rosenland was supposed to be her reader at first. Though she wasn't sure it was a good match, Rue had faith in the procedure. She thought the reading would be quite normal when she got to the audition studio. Jay Sandrich, the director, took her by surprise instead. "Rue," he muttered as he swept through his papers. "Do something new. I want you to." Blanche Devoe read. Acting on impulse, she hadn't practiced a word for her role as Blanche. She became more subdued. She changed positions. Her vitality changed. As soon as she spoke, everyone in the room went silent. Before adding, "That's her," Sandrich leaned forward. "Here we have Blanche." Fearless yet filled with an otherworldly, thrilling certainty, Rue bolted out of the studio. Her life altered irrevocably. The Unbreakable Golden Bond. On the day of its premiere, September 14, 1985, The Golden Girls went viral. Reviewers proclaimed it groundbreaking within weeks. It was a comedy that included women above the age of 50 without making fun of them. Estelle Getty, Betty White, B. Arthur, and Rue McClanahan all became well known. Their charming cadence, magnetic on-screen charisma, and connection won over viewers. Together, the four of them shared laughs and tears and bravely discussed aging, loneliness, love, and other taboo subjects. A much colder reality, however, lay beneath that halo of achievement. The togetherness that fans thought wasn't entirely real, Rue subsequently revealed. Years later, she admitted in an interview that they weren't as close as the audience wanted them to be. "We weren't family. We were co-workers who were occasionally close and other times far apart." The comedic tone of the show made it easier to disregard the fact that the four female leads were from completely diverse backgrounds. Being a stage-trained perfectionist who valued isolation over small chat, B. Arthur was both imposing and reclusive. In contrast, Betty White was well-liked by the media and almost everyone she encountered due to her amiability, humor, and natural charisma. Unbeknownst to onlookers, these disparities subtly increased stress. Members of the staff saw in Season 2 that B got agitated whenever Betty was the center of attention during interviews. B allegedly used derogatory comments toward Betty behind Betty's back, according to co-producer Marsha Posner Williams. She spoke words that shocked everyone around her. But when it came time to pose for the cameras, poise and professionalism won out. Although their characters argued, they skillfully avoided letting their egos get in the way of a good moment. The mediator was Rue. She had a better grasp of B's emotions than anyone else because they had worked together on Ma years before. Rue would come in to calm things down when tensions rose, and she would frequently remain late after taping to have these lengthy conversations. That it was Rue's talent. It was later reported by one of the crew members that she had the ability to walk into a storm and emerge with everyone laughing. A price has to be paid for even that. As the years passed and the atmosphere became increasingly inflexible, the emotional burden of holding onto the artwork dragged on her subtly. The chasm had grown indiscernible by the 7th season. Exhaustion wasn't the only reason B left in 1992. An escape that was. Although Rue acknowledged that her decision hurt her, she nevertheless appreciated it. "We achieved great things as a team," she whispered. However, creative disputes and the struggle for recognition can be painful parts of history. The late Rue McClanahan was more than an actor. She had unwavering faith in her art form as an artist. On the other hand, the ladies who played the roles of the Golden Girls rarely had any say in the creative decisions made by the production team. Subtly but surely, Rue's annoyance mounted over the years, especially when people ignored her recommendations. One of Rue's most painful recollections was detailed in her 2007 memoir, My First Five Husbands and the Ones Who Got Away. She came up with the concept for the short-lived spin-off series The Golden Palace, which aired after Beatrice Arthur left the main series. After Dorothy's departure, Rue felt the new series was lacking in enthusiasm and required a new character to fill her shoes. It wasn't about B's replacement, she clarified. Returning equilibrium was the key. However, the producers declined. They prioritized depth over profit. Their reaction was so distant, according to Rue's writing. It wasn't even worth the belch of a flea. People were talking about just one line. It revealed the unseen struggles that Rue had waged behind the scenes more clearly than anything else, for the sake of excellence, not celebrity. The Golden Girls were more than just a comedy show to her. She saw it as a social truth played for laughs. It was her deepest feeling of betrayal when management transformed it into a commercial machine. But Rue kept pouring her soul into Blanche. Although she occasionally felt trapped in her role, she was aware that it was her legacy. Surprisingly, she didn't really act like her persona. Love and care were Blanche's lifeblood. Rue longed for solitude and tranquility. She claimed that Blanche was not real. "I simply brought her life." When tabloids started depicting Rue as a middle-aged seductress, similar to Blanche's on-screen character, the boundary between truth and art became more blurry. Even though it hurt her, she tried to laugh it off in interviews. She remarked to a pal, "People forget there's a woman behind the wig," at one point. Her 6 marriages also became topics of gossip. For Rue, it proved that everyone adored Blanche, but never gave Rue their full attention. The woman with the accent is Blanche Devoe. With Blanche's own voice, Rue achieved one of her greatest creative triumphs. An Atlanta native, Blanche was originally portrayed as refined, feminine, and elegant in the script. Something was lacking. Rue felt it right away. She would look out of place with her native Oklahoma accent. Rue made a joke about how she should sound like honey dripping off a spoon. Aunt Pearl, who was a relative of Rue's mother, had an unusual combination of Southern charisma and English pretense. This influenced Rue to create Blanche's distinctive musical appeal. It was first turned down by director J. Sandry. For the pilot, he advised her to stick to her own tongue. Rue did as instructed, but he despised doing so. She spoke out to Paul Bogart, the show's new director, who took her concerns seriously and revived the series. He then ordered Blanche returned. Everything changed at that moment. A revitalized Blanche Devoe emerged, one with heightened sensuality, energy, and performance. Her every word echoed with a sense of self-confidence, longing, and pride. Even Arthur conceded that the show's vibrancy came from Rue's accent. Near the conclusion of the series, Rue made another daring move. All of Blanche's costumes were requested to be kept by her. That wasn't about ego. It was prudent planning. These hand-tailored silk gowns were the culmination of a lifetime of creative work. Afterwards, Rue included them into her A Touch of Rue fashion brand that she sold on QVC. She insisted that was more than simply clothes. Fans could take a little bit of Blanche with them when they left. From beyond the glitz and splendor, Rue's life was everything from stable. Tom Keel, her fifth husband, claimed she owed him a portion of her Golden Girls earnings and sued her for it in 1986. He was granted his request by the court. A humiliating experience, Rue said. I had to pay for my own dream. The private life of Rue was crumbling even as she grinned on film. She found some solace in her sixth marriage to Mara Wilson, but sadly, her health was already deteriorating. It was starting to show years of stress, insomnia, and emotional weariness. Subtle diseases that Rue McClanahan's bright grin betrayed years of silent anguish. Everyone thought she exemplified the best of what the South had to offer. Charming, brilliant, and unbeatable. Those closest to her, though, could see the weariness on her face. Even before the news reported it, her body was showing signs of failure. Pain, an unseen adversary, confronted Rue in 2005 during her Broadway performance in Wicked. She had to perform for months at an angle that hurt her knees due to the steeply rad stage of the show. She kept her composure at 72, but the stress was too much. She got around to having knee surgery in 2008. It ought to have been an easy process. This was actually the turning point in her deterioration. The lengthy period of immobility following surgery exacerbated Rue's recovery complications due to blood clots. She was prescribed medicine to prevent blood clots. Warfarin is an effective medication for preventing blood clots since it thins the blood. However, there were serious side effects associated with warfarin, particularly when used in conjunction with other medications. For decades, Rue had relied on lorazepam to control her anxieties. Anxiety that began when her father enlisted in the military and continued throughout her youth during World War II. She referred to those years as the hour of the crash, when fear and isolation descended like a nighttime storm. As she aged, the assaults became more frequent and severe. In the midst of dusk, she shivered and her heart raced. It's as if my body remembered being abandoned, she once stated. Doctors prescribed sedatives to calm her nerves, but these same drugs made her vulnerable to the very condition that would later end her life. Her suffering was recognized by her friends. Backstage, she frequently gripped railings and moved more slowly, even though she laughed on camera. She had an enduring sense of humor. Sit-down comedy was the name of her last comedy tour, and she joked that she was no longer good for anything other than applause. Still, the reality was murkier. Physically, emotionally, and quietly, Rue was in agony. Finally, the legacy and confession. The Television Academy filmed Rue McClanahan's last long-form interview in early 2010. She was very open and honest for almost 3 hours, discussing her friendships, her celebrity, and the things she wished were different. She admitted that she was the one who persuaded Beatrice Arthur to become a member of the Golden Girls, telling her that it would be more than just another mod. While she refrained from pointing fingers, she did concede that Bea and Betty's friendship was chilly at best. According to her, we were experts. The show continued to air because of that. Her demeanor changed as we inquired about the Golden Palace. Rue let out a heavy breath as she remembered how producers who were only interested on making money ignored her creative suggestions. It was never about us, she admitted. It was about syndication. That was the hardest fact for a lady whose storytelling was more important than money. Rue went to the New York City Memorial for Bea Arthur a few weeks before she passed away. She spoke briefly but passionately, her brittle body radiating her inner strength. When asked about her, Rue said, "She was the real thing," her voice quivering. "And she made me better." Nobody at the theater could have imagined that this would be Rue's last public performance. Rue McClanahan passed away in New York Presbyterian Hospital on June 3, 2010, following a severe stroke brought on by a brain hemorrhage. Her age was 76. Paradoxically, her physicians pointed out that she had been using warfarin, a drug specifically designed to avoid this kind of catastrophe. One of television's most memorable ensembles came to a close with her passing. The news media all around the United States expressed their sorrow at the tragedy. Blonde Demo was hailed as an emblem of adult autonomy by the New York Times. Because it wasn't intended for laughter but for truth, NPR lauded Rue's performance, calling it the hardest role to play. As time goes on, Rue's impact remains. Blanche Deveaux has iconic status in popular culture. The pioneering TV actress who proved that beauty never fades with age, that audiences' perceptions of sexuality, confidence, and attractiveness were all altered by her work. Yet, Rue's genuine talent extended beyond her personality alone. Her sincerity was the key. The world was reminded that even the most brilliant stars have shadows by her humor, difficulties, and unwavering vulnerability. Courage and suffering defined Rue McClanahan's last years, the kind that remains vibrant even after the power goes off. Her honesty on The Golden Girls exposed the truth behind their success: grace, tragedy, and sacrifice. To what extent do you believe each of the four Golden Girls' portrayals of themselves were accurate? You mean Rue, B, Betty, or Estelle? Please share your ideas in the comments section and hit that like button if you want to see more behind-the-scenes Hollywood stories.